Hello everybody, I'm Coach Tickety. In today's video, we're going to be talking about 5 very simple ways that you can change up your gameplay to help you improve and start climbing faster. So whether you feel like you're hard stuck in ELO hell or you're just trying to push towards a new peak this season, the advice in this video should help you get better at the game quickly. If you're looking for more ways to improve, maybe that's something more in-depth or something more specific to the heroes that you main, you should head over to GameLeap.com. Over on the site, you will find hundreds of guides and more being added every single week made by our top level coaching team. In these guides, you will find everything you need to know about the game, from pure fundamentals to step-by-step hero mastery courses. So if you really want to start climbing, click the links below this video or head over to GameLeap.com and get your membership started today. Alright, let's get into it. The very first thing you're going to want to do is to put the majority of your time and focus into just a few hero comfort picks. I'm talking about maybe 2 or 3 heroes on your given role that you spend 90% of your time playing in competitive. We want to do this because, simply, heroes in Overwatch are complicated. They all have very different kits, they all have unique strengths and weaknesses, and they all play at least a little bit differently. Focusing our playtime on a smaller group of heroes allows us to truly master our picks and get better at things like matchup knowledge, how to play them on different maps and with different heroes on our team, and things like that. Of course, it can be difficult to truly one-trick in a game like Overwatch because there are soft counters that exist. It can feel like your hero choice just won't find value in your given game, so that's what those backup picks are for, and it's important to have some level of flexibility there so that if what you're playing is getting countered, you can swap to something different and maybe mix up your playstyle. So again, try to make these hero picks as consistent as possible. Make sure you're picking the same types of heroes between games, and if you need to swap, if you are feeling like you're getting countered, make sure you've got a backup in mind. My next tip is to stop waiting for a pick or a kill to come through before you get aggressive. Now, obviously, if you do get a pick, if someone on your team does find a kill, you want to get aggressive off that as well, but the key here is to not wait for that to happen before you start making game plans and start using your kit to find value. Advantages in a game like Overwatch aren't always as black and white as we got a kill, so therefore we're winning. There's other things to consider like strong positions, important cooldowns, and of course ultimates. You should be looking to find any of these types of advantages and getting aggressive with them. This will allow you to open up more space over the map, create more advantages for your team, and of course find more kills. Even if you're playing with DPS like a Hanzo or a Widowmaker who have the capability of finding picks, you shouldn't be waiting for it to happen. You should be getting aggressive so that they have more space, maybe burning through important cooldowns so they can actually find kills, and then once all those things are out of the way, it becomes a lot easier for your snipers to actually find their picks. You shouldn't be asking them to try and work through an entire enemy team without any help. My next tip is to remember what you're working on every time you play the game. If you want to improve as a player, we need to not only eliminate our enemies, but any mistakes that we're making ourselves. That means we should be able to identify any of the obvious mistakes we're making in game, and then setting goals for ourselves to never make those same mistakes again. But this is easier said than done. It's probably easy enough to recognize after you die that maybe you made a few mistakes and you did something bad, but then remembering to not do it again is the hard part. If we fail to learn from these mistakes, then we will quickly find ourselves hard stuck and unable to climb because we won't be able to actually improve. What this looks like in game is players that find themselves autopiloting. They don't really have a reason for the different decisions they're making in game, and while they are playing to the best of their ability, they are falling into the same traps and pitfalls over and over again because they're not learning from their previous mistakes. If this sounds like you, then you're not setting good enough goals for yourself. You should be trying to target these mistakes very specifically and then working on them one at a time until it becomes second nature and you don't even need to think about them anymore. These individual mistakes will look different depending on the player, but you'll want to look at broad things like positioning, cooldown usage, ultimates, and things like that before you look at some of the smaller details like how you're taking duels, individual hero matchups, or a specific map knowledge. In any case, remember that whatever skills you're working on, it's not always about pushing the upper limit higher and higher, but often about raising the lower limit, eliminating all those common mistakes we're talking about so that you become more consistent. The best players in the world aren't only the best because they've got the best mechanics or they're the best at their given hero choices or things like that, but because they make the fewest mistakes, so keep your focus there. My next tip is something that you guys probably don't want to hear, but I promise you it's something you need to hear. You are not the protagonist. No matter how good you think you are not that guy. You shouldn't be taking crazy, unnecessary risks, you shouldn't be ignoring your teammates when they're trying to help you, and you shouldn't be expecting to win every fight or every single game because simply that's not possible. Instead, we need to remember a couple of things. First of which is that Overwatch is a team game. If we try to solo carry every situation and put the weight of the world on our shoulders, then we will quickly fail. Whenever you can, try to pay more attention to your teammates. Play for the same spaces as they are, take fights when they're taking them, and focus down the same targets as them. Next, you should be trying to stop yourself from taking those unnecessary risks. You don't need to take a fight just because you can. You should always be looking for an advantage. So if whatever fight you're taking is just coming down to mechanics of whoever's hitting more shots, that's probably not a good situation to be in when you could have looked for other things like getting a better position, catching someone when they're out of cooldowns, or manipulating a 2v1 with your teammates. And finally, the last thing to remember here is that it's physically impossible to win in every situation. If all your teammates are dead or the enemy's throwing 5 ultimates your way, you probably shouldn't be expecting to win out that fight no matter how good your mechanics are or how many heads you can click on. The key here, just like before, is that we want to be looking for advantages, not just looking for a fight. If we get things started and we find ourselves at disadvantage, we need to be able to back up, keep ourselves safe, and get ready for the next opportunity instead of forcing that one. So really the only thing you should be thinking about here is that while it is possible to get those huge pop-off moments, those 5K play the games, that's not the expected outcome every single time. And if we start playing as if we're expecting those moments, more often than not, we'll just end up back in the spawn room. And finally, my next tip is that you need to be adapting to the game as it changes. This is something that I see holding players back all the time, so let's talk about what that means. Every single fight in Overwatch will be at least a little bit different than fights that came before it. Different areas of the map will be contested, different heroes will be chosen, different ultimates will be available, people will land shots differently, all sorts of things change over the course of a game and of course in between games. This doesn't always mean that you need to change things up entirely yourself in terms of your hero choice or your playstyle, but it means you need to take these things into account when it comes to making a plan for the upcoming teamfight. The biggest things you'll want to keep in mind are where power positions are around a teamfight, so corners, high grounds, long sight lines, things like that, as well as who has key abilities or even ultimates available at any given moment. By keeping these things at the front of your mind, you'll be able to identify those advantages we've been talking about. You'll be able to tell when you've got a better position over your opponents and when you've got more important abilities to use than they do. But again, keep in mind that these variables will be changing every single fight. Just because you got a good position one fight doesn't mean that the enemy won't be ready for it next fight. Just because you forced an important cooldown that let you get a kill previously doesn't mean they won't have a different cooldown or an ultimate available next time to make up for that. And this thinking will go double if we're talking about going from game to game. Even if you're playing on the same map, you'll be playing with different opponents, different teammates, probably different hero picks, and you'll need to come up with new strategies that work for that moment instead of relying on things that worked in the past. This ever-changing state of the game is what makes Overwatch so complicated, but it's also what makes it pretty fun. It can be incredibly rewarding to be able to outplay your opponents just by reading into these advantage states and outplaying them based on cooldown management, positioning, and just general decision making, without even talking about how good your mechanics are. During this video, I've talked a lot about how complicated Overwatch really is, but hopefully the simple and straightforward advice in this video gives you something to latch onto to help you improve your gameplay. But of course, there's so much that's left unsaid here, so let me know down in the comments what are some of your guys' easy fixes that you've applied to your gameplay. What's something you learned along the way that helped you immediately improve? Let us know in the comments and you might just help someone else who's watching this video right now. Don't forget to go check out GameLeap.com. Over there you can use our hundreds of guides made by top level coaches to help you improve at any aspect of the game. So whether you're a beginner or you're trying to push to a new peak this season, you'll find something that can help you climb. So head on over to GameLeap.com and get your membership started today. That's going to be all from me today, everyone. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video and I'll see you guys in the next one.